Welcome back to the Whiskey and Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Kellum, and I'm with
Tyler, y'all.
And this week we are bringing back a fan favorite and somebody who always makes me think a little bit more than I should, Papa Reggie.
Hey.
As per usual, Reggie brought us some tequila.
It's not whiskey and wisdom, it's tequila and tales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time we have you on. I just love it, though. And before we get too deep into it, while Reggie's going to showcase what we're drinking, we're going to do an amazing shout out. Because if you didn't notice, we are in a new space. We are in Kent Street Station. This is a new studio space for us. This is a Kent Street Station studio. Shout out to Aloha Wilmington Commercial Property for letting us set up in here and giving us a space. We love having a spot where we can be consistent and bring people in and not have to worry about, can we be here? Can we not? Can I drink this or not? So thank you.
Yeah.
So you brought us some Don Julio Rosado.
Rosado Rosado, which it's a Don Julio Reposado that is aged in a sherry cask. It's finished in a sherry cask. Unlike a lot of tequilas that are rested, the darker tequilas are rested in more traditional oak barrels or those kind of things. So this is rested in or finished in a sherry. So it's got a little red.
I like it.
Tip. So I've actually never had this before. I had a client give this to me as a gift for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And I don't drink that much tequila anymore. It's a rare occasion, maybe once a quarter or so.
Oh, it's pink even.
Yeah, Rosado.
Rosado, right.
Rosado.
It's supposed to have some tasting notes of red fruit and caramel. Yeah, with just your classic crispy traditional hints and a little bit sweeter for a tequila.
Do we lead off now to make the podcast more interesting, or
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
why not?
And if people don't know,
Salud.
we have had Reggie on prior. So if you want to hear his backstory and a little about him and how he knows Chris, you can go back and listen to those episodes. But this time, we are getting into the tales of business and management, right?
Yeah, surely leadership. That's right. Leadership. Well, so traditionally, I've had coaching practice here for the last 20 years in town. Started in 2005. Yeah. And how time flies. So November will be my 20th year of being open and in practice. And we've traditionally been worked with business owners, and really kind of coached them and their team to grow and develop. We made a bit of a shift because we could only really help and impact a couple of dozen businesses a year. Mm-hmm. And coaching doesn't have much scale. But one of the things that does have a certain degree of scale and we can help and assist more people is, and we've always had a pretty significant element of training in our world. I've done seminars and workshops and those kind of things the entire time in the practice. But it generally was, it was a small part of what we did, mostly introductory to people, to our world, kind of exposing people. And then we'd go deeper with our training with our clients one-on-one, kind of pull off the shelf what they needed. So we've really shifted our model a bit in the last few years to make a greater impact and be able to reach more people. And I can help more people here by focusing on training in a few different areas, sales being one, management another, leadership being the third. And of course, also the traditional things that we've done for the last 20 years is training business owners how to grow, and because and I could take each of those disciplines and people that are professionally doing those things in their world. Let's take sales, for instance. Yeah. You got people that often find themselves in sales positions who have never formally been trained on sales, on sales philosophy, sales technique, sales. Now, what they're typically trained in is product knowledge, how to sell products.
Yeah.
Chris, you're in sales.
Yeah.
I'd be interested. I don't know. I've never really asked this, but think about it. What percentage of your training when it comes to selling your product or service is product training, and how much of it is sales training, philosophy, techniques, the how to be able to pick up on interpersonal behavior and how to adjust for that. I don't know. How is it in your world?
So I would say when I started, it was like 80-20 product knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I picked up personal skills and learned that. And then recently, legit within the last year, I've seen a shift to like actual interpersonal skills, learning and knowing more about the client before just selling products. And so it's definitely shifted, because I went to like 3 or 4 different trainings last year, and all of them were focusing more on personal sales, connections, and actually bringing that back to the team and be like, okay, so instead of just no, this product, know the person.
Right. Yep. And of course, this is higher level sales training that you're attending because you have grown to become a top performer. So you have gotten to the point of becoming a high performer before you're receiving primarily the science of sales training and development. Well, you know who really needs that?
The new guy.
The new guy, right? That's just starting out, right? And that's why they struggle. Now, why did you get so far? Because you have a natural set of skills and talents and interpersonal skills that you've been able to tap into that you were able to use. But what about everybody else that finds themselves in sales positions that don't have that knack, that don't have that natural tendency? So unfortunately, we've had to deal with those salespeople in the past that just are product dumping on their people they work with, the people they're trying to help. And it's rough, because there's nothing worse than having to deal with a salesperson that is product pushing, or order taking, that just isn't a problem solver, that isn't able to identify what somebody's needs are and being able to solve that. So you have a lot of people in sales positions that have never been formally trained on how to sell. You have a lot of managers that are high performers that have risen up and performed well as an employee, and they get promoted to a position of management. How often are managers given proper management training?
Very rarely.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with a manager that it was very clear
Yes.
that they were never formally trained on how to manage?
Yeah.
Yep.
They learned how to manage from whatever they learned from their boss before them.
Yep.
May have been good, may have been bad, it's actually learning mostly what not to do.
Right.
Because they weren't properly trained on how to be a manager. And they find themselves managing through using their role power, their interpersonal strength, their emotions, and really using force of will to be able to get performance from their team.
Right.
What usually happens is a handful of things. They often have to work harder than anybody else on the team because they often find that they're high performers, and if something is to be done right,
You have to do it
themselves.
got to do it themselves, right? So that is a common trend, and the managers end up getting burned out. They get frustrated, and sometimes they have moments of clarity where they come in and go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in on Monday, and I am going to crack the whip. Right? Whoop-ah. Yeah, I am going to come in. I'm going to be tough. I'm going to be whatever your adjective is on what you're going to do. But I'm going to go in and be that. I'm going to go kick some tail. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Good management is a system. It's a process. It's about getting things done, getting competency and results from your team. So, and an outcome and input. So making sure that, and there's a process to that. So part of our 12-week management training is to install a system. In our management master class, and all our master classes are not just about learning philosophy. It's not like a 2-day information dump,
Right.
And then go back and figure out what to do. But it's 1 week at a time, learning skills, learning processes, walking out with action items to do in the week, testing it out, seeing what works, figuring out what doesn't work and where you struggle, and then come back and getting feedback on how to adjust and course correct and not give up. Because what happens when you try something new? more times than not, does that usually work out or not work out?
Typically not the first
Not
time.
work out. Well, especially when you're trying to lay it on other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Because your people know, Tyler's been to another seminar. Yeah, he's been to another workshop. He's all fired up. It'll pass.
Yep.
Like it'll pass.
It'll be on for about 2 weeks.
We're gonna smile and nod, boys. Just smile and nod, and then we're gonna work our way through.
And you had another class recently too that was the difference between management and leadership, right?
Yep. Yeah, we had an intro class, the difference between management and leadership. It's really two different things. There's a difference between management and leadership. Whereas management is about productivity and competency. Leadership is about passion and focus. And getting people enrolled, inspired, and focused on what they're doing. Again, you got people that have ascended to positions of leadership, haven't been formally trained on how to be a leader. They just do what others have done. So we run these 12-week master classes in different series. We're currently running we're about to launch for the first time our leadership master class. Really, really excited about that. And one of the things we do, and I'll talk about a little bit at the end, but when it comes to all our master classes, we figured out over time that the best way for people to get the power and experience what we do is we just let them attend the first class on us. And that's really pretty powerful. We let them see the goods and let them see week one and do a trial of week one, see the power and the information, the style. It's really different than anything they've experienced before. They get world-class training. They get interaction with other high achievers. They get also coaching and facilitation from me, which is really my superpower. I'm actually not the instructor. We have a world-class instructor that comes in via video, and he's really one of the best in the world. He's the founder of the organization that I'm partnered with, Action Coach. And Brad, you're familiar with Brad Sugars, right? Yep. Both of you experienced Brad in different ways. So, Brad's a extremely powerful, trainer, teacher to people in the workplace, very practical. And so I let him do the teaching. And so he does the teaching, and then I do what I do, which is take his principles and practices and help take his content and add context to it so that they can, and help them with implementation and accountability and support they need to be able, and how do they tweak and adjust those, that training without, when they get overwhelmed or they're not sure how to make it work for them in their organization. Right. So I don't know, what was your take? You guys have both had experiences with Brad. Tyler, I know you went through a pretty intense course with us.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, how would you characterize Brad as a trainer and teacher?
Yeah, he was very charismatic for sure. So it definitely keeps your attention, especially during those parts where it may not be your forte. So there was areas that I've typically kind of turned off before just because you know what, I'm just not good at that. I'll have someone else do it. But he was actually able to make it more engaging for me to be like, hey, you know what, this actually is something that I should focus on and could actually be better at. Yeah. So that was something that I really got from it. And then the way that I was able to experience him was through the group coaching and being able to go back to the group and talk to everyone too, how they were able to implement it was very powerful as well.
Cool. Did it make a difference in your business? Did it help? Cool. Most people it has, so I'm glad.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So what I thought I'd bring today is the top 11 mistakes that leaders often make. Yeah. Oh. I thought I'd share those things and kind of take things that I've seen over the years. Kind of pulled a little of this from our content that we have. Actually, I started off with the top 20. And I even talked to Chris about it. I was like, actually what I was going to do, I wanted to feature both programs. I was like, I want to do the top 20 mistakes that salespeople make and the top 20 mistakes that leaders make. But I'm worried about that being too much. And Chris was like, that's definitely going to be too much. And so so I said, okay, well, I'll do the top 20 leadership mistakes. And I started preparing and, the content and started thinking about how we'd make this the best experience for everybody. And I thought, and we shaved it back down. So 9 got left on the cutting room floor and 11 are left. That's going to really leave us time for discussion and context. Right. And I really want this to be a bit interactive. Yeah. I want you guys to talk about some of the experiences you've had with leaders before and how you've experienced some of these mistakes that leaders have made. Sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I think it'll be as good as you guys are. So
Sounds
today,
good.
so the pressure's on and all. I'm prepared. I got my stuff.
Say,
I got
turntables.
yeah, that's right. I got my Denny's menu sheet like any coach would. So I'm going to follow along because I do have a lot I want to cover. I don't want to miss points. So people usually use notes in this kind of environment, but I want to make sure I cover everything and don't miss anything. So y'all good?
Yeah,
that works.
Ready to play along? Let's do it. Number one mistake that leaders make is a lack of vision.
Yes.
They have a lack of vision. They have a lack of clarified vision on, where they're going, why they want to get there. I heard a philosopher one time say that if you aren't clear on your destination, you're just going for a walk. And that walk can take you all kinds of different directions if you don't know where you're going and you don't course correct. Yeah. So and I think vision is really important because if you don't have a clear vision on where the organization is headed, then it's hard to direct the members of that team as well. It's hard for them to self-correct. Unfortunately, when you bring an organization together, the organization, the owner, the manager, the shareholders, whoever, they have a vision for what they want. Well, these folks they come in to hire to help them achieve that vision, they have their own vision of what they want. And so often those visions, collide, don't align, as you go into get hired in most large organizations, what's the owner want? Well, they want to make as much money as possible. They want to work you as hard as possible, and they want to pay you as little as they can get away with. Well, what's your vision?
The opposite of that.
The opposite of that, right? Right. You want to make the most money possible for yourself. You probably, you don't mind working, but you really don't want to work at full capacity, right? You don't want to work 100%. You'd be exhausted. You have other interests, other passions, other things you want to do. So you don't want your life just to be your work. So what are the, what are the guidelines, what are the maps? So in order to have a shared vision on this is where we're going, this is why we're getting there, and this is how it benefits everybody involved. So, everybody's got to have visibility on why are we here? Yeah. What are we here to do? And it makes a big difference and by the way, it's got to be more than, and if you don't have that, you're just going to trade time for money.
Yes.
Right? It's just a job, just the job, just punching the clock, doing what I got to do, check in, check out until, and go do something I'm really passionate about and something I'm really excited about. So,
and vision being more than just hitting a sales goal, right?
Oh yeah, that's an objective.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's an objective.
And that's drastically different because a lot of places have objectives. They don't have visions. They're like, hey, this is our goal today is hit this much money. Why are we hitting this much money? How are we going to get to that, doing that? By giving a proper presentation, getting to know these people who walk in the door, give everybody an experience where they feel like they are worth $1 million.
Right. And how often do you run across organizations that have a vision like that and communicate that well on their team and infuse that in their team? And what's it like walking into an organization that doesn't have that?
Yeah.
And you know the difference.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everyone who walks in the door can feel the difference. It's just, it's a different energy. When people are all on the same wavelength and follow the same vision, it makes a drastically big difference.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it makes a huge difference. And if, when everybody has that vision, is on board, and also executes it well. Now you can have all the vision you want, but if you don't hold, everybody accountable to execution, and not just accountability, but also direction and guidance and support and training, then they're really going to, and you also don't model it. You got to model it too.
Right.
Yes.
But all that's not possible if the vision is not clear and not just something on the wall with a poster and a sailboat and a sunset and all those kind of things, but which is where kind of a lot of visions die, is on the poster board somewhere, in the break room. But it's got to be lived all the way throughout the organization. I'm trying to, I think Disney does that well. You go to Disney, and from the time you step on, you drive up on. Either one of you been to Disney?
Yeah.
Hadn't been to Disney.
Yeah, no.
Hadn't been to Disney. Okay, add that to the list. For sure. Of adventures for sure. But say you've been to Disney, like the time you hit the door, when you hit the gate.
Yeah.
it is a totally different experience. Now, I've been to some of the other parks in the Orlando area.
Right.
And so I went to another one, and it was just,
Right.
like your typical amusement park.
And talking about just getting everyone on board, even the employees are called cast members.
That's right.
So even down to what they're calling everyone. So you're not having an employee meeting, you're having a cast meeting.
That's right.
So just kind of the whole embodiment of what you're supposed to experience walking in.
That's right. By the time your car hits when you pay the guy an excessive amount of money to park.
Exactly.
Right. But they just make you feel great about it. And you're like, oh, this is different. And the experience, and you walk in and, just at every step of the way, there's just little things that are done all the way throughout. Man, you drop a French fry. Yeah. And before you know it, some ninja pops out of somewhere and just sweeps it up and disappears because they're watching. They're looking. They don't want to have a dirty park. They don't want to have a mess. It's hot in Orlando in the summertime.
Yeah.
And, they have the stores. Right. Doors are open, air conditioners blowing in. Now, that's all part of their vision to, be able to extract as much profit from you as possible. But everything all the way throughout the process to make sure you have an exceptional experience. But that's all in their, in the vision that they have. So exceptional companies, exceptional organizations have a strong vision, make sure everybody's aligned, but also lives it within the organization. And not having that is a big mistake that folks make. So great leaders have clarity of vision that keeps the team focused. You got to have that to focus the team back to. Second mistake that leaders make is ignoring core values. Not establishing core values. A lot of organizations that are, that are ramped up, that are built, emerging organizations, when they first start out, it's just them and the owner. They hire a few employees. And the core values just kind of happen by default.
Yeah.
It kind of takes on the personality of, the owner, and the core staff. And then as the organization grows, they often don't know how to establish them, or they're not formalized. It's kind of somebody new walks in. You ever walked into a business a little bit smaller business, and there's just a lot of unspoken rules.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you show up, there's a big learning curve.
Yeah.
You're the new kid. It's uncomfortable. You don't know, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. Yeah. And it creates a lack of freedom of movement because, man, I don't want to get yelled at. I don't want to get looked at funny. I don't want to not be one of the cool kids, but I'm just not where, and it becomes your first few days are generally really, really tough in that process.
Yeah, especially like if you walk in and they don't set down any ground rules.
That's right.
You're assuming that every move you make in your head, you're like, oh, this is right. And they come, as soon as they snap at you for the first thing you did wrong, you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to do that anymore.
Or I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
If I take a step without permission or precedent, then let me just wait and do what I'm told to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that happens, quite a bit. So, if you don't have rules of the game that regulates behavior in the organization, you have to have those things. If you don't, either people in the workplace, they just live to their own values. Whatever's been put into them to that point, whatever mom and dad has put into them,
right?
Good, bad, or indifferent. Whatever other workplaces have put into them, whatever the world has put into them, whatever the culture has put into them, that's how they behave.
I was actually talking to an attorney recently, and she was actually talking about something very similar about the rules. And she was, not only is it bad for vision and goals and to move a business forward, but it can actually also lead to other legal ramifications down the road too. Mm-hmm. Because what will just inevitably happen is this person acts like this, so he has a set of rules. This person acts like that, so they have a set of rules, right. And you end up in a whole bigger situation.
Yeah, that's right. What am I supposed to do? Right. I don't know how to act. And if some of those, that can create hostile work environments.
Right. Yeah.
If somebody has some bad values, that are toxic and negative, then that can cause some big issues. And if there's between some of those major powers, you have, they're rubbing, the leaders are rubbing each other the wrong way. It becomes tough. Sometimes you get this when husbands and wives work together, and they take some of their personal beefs into the workplace.
Right.
That's some of the issues that can happen in family businesses as well. Yeah. So if and the other thing, not only do people default to their own values if they're not established, also values often get established by the strongest personalities that exist within the business.
That's true.
So let's hope those strong personalities emulate what the owner, manager, or leader wants. Sometimes the leader, owner, or manager in the organization is not the strongest personality within the business.
Yeah.
Within the organization, within the structure. So somebody can come in with a real strong personality and can come in, and especially if they're the skillful politician. Right? They're hungry, they're smart, they have a high EQ, but they're not humble.
Yeah.
And they lay in the weeds, and they smile to your face and talks, and kind of do I was going to say they do the Eddie Haskell. But I'm afraid that's a reference that does not hit. I can't use Leave It to Beaver references. I'm aging myself for sure, so it doesn't get crustier than that. So anyway, Eddie Haskell was a character that was on a show called Leave It to Beaver, a 50s, 60s sitcom that, hey, hi, Mrs. Cleaver. Hey, Mr. Cleaver. He was real sweet to mom and dad.
Yeah.
But he was surely a rascal.
In the back.
Behind the scenes.
Right.
But, whenever the parents showed up, he was, oh, hello, Mrs. Cleaver. Can I help you with something? So that's doing the Eddie Haskell, if you ever hear that cultural reference. Be prepared for that. So I'm here to help to,
Thank you.
Bridge the gap between.
Yeah. Need someone to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Between the boomers and, the Gen Xers.
What are we?
Or millennials.
And the millennials and the Gen Zers of the world. So I'm the bridge. So I've got to be careful now with references that I use. So you've got to, and they can't just be words in an employee's handbook or a poster on a wall. They have to be lived in the organization. So making sure you not only establish core values, but you live them, that they are, that they're reinforced. That, by the way, the first step, make sure that you hire to them, because you can either try to change people's values.
Yeah.
And by the way, values got put in by mom and dad and whatever, and their environment up to this point. So your values generally aren't chosen. They're chosen for you by all the environments you've been in the past. So you can either hire to your organization's values, or you can try to transform people. I assure you, trying to work out mommy and daddy issues in the workplace, most of us don't have time for that.
No.
So it's much easier to hire to make sure that you're doing things that attract people that have value matches, but you also have to verify that they have matching values, and make sure that when you praise, when you reprimand, when you reward, when you all the way throughout, making sure that core values are top of mind in the litmus test you use, and that I think Chick-fil-A surely is a great model of that. They have a certain set of core values that they have, and if you match them, you match them, and if you don't, you're just not going to last in that organization. But as soon as you stop at that place, you realize this place is a lot different than that fast food joint across the parking lot that is just bringing their own values to the organization.
So question then is, how as a good leader, how do you hire someone and properly interview people to know what their values are?
That's an awesome question. So you make sure they're established first.
Yeah.
And then once they're established, you make sure that your interview process. Now, you want to use some things up front to make sure that you're using the language that would connect with somebody with those core values, so that they can, they'll identify with that and get excited about applying.
Okay.
So now, but by the way, some people will fake it.
Yeah.
Some people will, I've got that, I've got that. And some people also have lack of self-awareness. Like they think they have, a positive, whatever, energetic personality, but, that's maybe compared to the other sloths in their life, right? The most energetic sloth is still a sloth.
Yes.
Right. So making sure that you ask good, solid behavioral interviewing questions and interview techniques. One of the things that great great HR professionals will teach you is that you don't talk about hypothetical behavior when you're questioning and interviewing. Hypothetical questions get you hypothetical answers. If we're going to play make-believe, let's just play make-believe. Instead, you have to ask questions about what you have done. So one of our core values in this organization is hustle. Like, we believe in hustling.
Yeah.
We move quick. We move with a sense of urgency. We hustle. The owner hustles. Everybody in the organization hustles. If you don't hustle, you're not going to do well in this organization. Tell me about how you've hustled in the workplace in the past.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
All right. Chris goes, I've hustled this way, this way, this way. I've hustled this way. Okay, good. That's good. Have you ever had any challenges or issues or lessons learned when it comes to hustling in the workplace?
Oh.
All right, good. So, Chris, when I call your boss, like, you've given me your last 5 bosses here. You've given me your last 5 bosses. No, not your references.
Oh, your bosses.
Because I am not going to take your references.
Right.
Because Chris is a smart fella.
Right.
He is not going to put down a bad reference.
Right.
So I ask him in the interview process when we screen, tell me the names of your last 5 bosses. And I have a little bit of some questions about, what will they say about you, blah, blah, blah. And so I do a little digging about that. But I'm going to call them. And when I call your boss, what's your boss going to tell me about hustle and areas that where you've struggled there?
Yes, Chris is rehireable at this organization.
right. That's right. If you don't ask good questions, then, and by the way, talk to the boss, not the HR person.
Right.
And not and not their buddy that they've, already pre-programmed.
Right.
So making sure that you talk to the right people, talk to their coworkers, and ask good questions so that you do find out a little more, and also have the right questions to ask. Chris said that he had a little struggle with hustle in this area. What's your perspective? Right. And that gets around some of the more standard reference questions. Are they rehireable? Which is a fairly useless question.
Right.
In a lot of cases, because he's not going to give you anybody that's, there's no work credit report
exactly,
for the most part that you have access to. So you have to be good and strategic when it comes to hiring. By the way, and Chris, you're like going, wow, that's novel. Yeah. I've never heard of that before. Guess what? Most people that hire people and put the business in these people's hands, they haven't learned how to hire effectively that way either. Mm-hmm. Which is why they struggle with finding good people that have matches to their core values and also the competencies that are required in the workplace. So core values have to be alive in the organization. Third mistake that leaders make, and by the way, you got to let me know on time. Like, I'm at 3, so we got to keep a pace because time goes fast in Coach Reggie world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you got to let me know if I got to pick it up. The not recognizing achievement. So that's the third mistake that leaders make. They don't recognize achievement and good performance. Over the years, I've done engagement surveys, or I've done surveys in general of employees. And the number one metrics that gets the lowest score is the question that says that, how well do you feel like you're recognized for your contribution to the organization? And that particular question always scores the lowest. Most workers feel like they are not recognized for their contribution to the success of the organization. Right? Does that check out with your experience? Most people go, I don't, boss doesn't appreciate me, organization doesn't appreciate me. Without this place wouldn't operate. If you poll 3 owners, like 3 partners, and you say, what percentage do you contribute to the outcomes of the organization? And if you add up all 3, their percentages,
over 100,
always over 100%,
always
over 100%, because everybody thinks they do more than their share of in the organization. So people in the workplace consistently, overwhelmingly, don't feel like they're recognized for their contribution. So, and that's because their leaders, their managers, don't take the time to recognize them nearly enough.
Yeah.
Often, if a worker does 20 things right, what's the boss more likely to speak about them? One of those 19 things or the one thing they did wrong?
No.
Yeah, I think they did wrong.
There is an expectation and an entitlement that leaders have that, well, you're expected to do things right. Right? But that's not how you train. It's not how you train an animal.
True.
It's not how you train. It's not how you train an animal. It's not how you train a performance dog in a to do tricks and do flips. And that's not how you train. This is a bit of an outdated reference. I don't know if it's okay to use, but like it's Sea World and aquatic performance animals, right? How do they train? There's a book that was written in the 80s called Well Done. That is never read it, I guess. Well done. Yeah. And it was this great author that writes these little parable books like The 1 Minute Manager and Who Moved My Cheese and a lot of these cute little parable books that are really short. Yeah. Well Done is written by Ken Blanchard. It's one of that series, and he was at SeaWorld watching how they trained killer whales. Yeah. And he learned that you don't teach a killer whale how to jump over the you don't treat Shamu how to jump over the rope and do flips by taking a newspaper and wrapping it on the nose and telling it bad whale, right? Because the whale will, eat your arm off. Yeah, take the paper with it, but he wouldn't appreciate that. So what you do is you start out with the rope low in the water, and whenever he swims over the rope, he gives the fish, right? And they raise it up, and they keep giving fish, right? So they give him treats.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that you get great performance from your team? Well, every time they do something well, give them a treat. Yeah. Give them a piece of performance. Give them probably one of the most impactful treats you can give them is let them know they've done well and how it impacts the organization, the impact that it has. Hey, that was really good. Hey, you show up early all the time, and I really appreciate it. It allows us to start on time. It gets the day going right. And, man, it really makes a difference. I really appreciate it. Well, what's that going to do? You're going to feel good about showing up on time. You probably should give 10 pieces of encouragement for every one piece of reprimand. So, and how much better of a workplace would that be? And if you look at professional coaches at the highest level, how often, if you ever see behind the scenes footage of practices and those kind of things, how often do you see them? Yep, good, right. Oh, yep, that's good. Oh, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, keep doing that, right? Move, do this, do that. They tell them the right things to do and encourage. Hey, good job. That's the right thing to do because they know that's how they get more of that good, proper performance. So making sure, and it doesn't have to be employee of the month or things that are programmed or just obligatory. It's just as simple as every day, set an alarm, 2:00, and think of a couple of people to appreciate. Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate this. I really appreciate that. I've tried that in my own life where I just take the time and go and just have a, systematic, you can't make it look too, like you're doing it just because you have an alarm that goes off. But, if they start to figure out, it's 2:00, Reggie's handing out his acknowledgments. It necessarily work, but be able to make it authentic and really acknowledge it. Most important, add the extra thing, not just good job, but good job. And here's how it impacts the organization and also helps us achieve our vision. Yeah. Right. And that reinforces the vision. Or, hey, that's one of our core values here. And I really appreciate you reinforcing that core value.
When I first got into the professional workforce, it was really neat because there was two different managers and you got to see how they both worked with the same people and how it changed. And one of the issues was one of the girls wasn't dressing appropriately for the job. Yeah. And so the prior manager would be like, hey, stop wearing that. And she didn't really know what the right thing was to wear, so she just kept doing what she thought was good. Right. That manager left to go to a different position. New manager came in, and I was an assistant at the time, so he was like, hey, where are there some issues going on? So I mentioned that. He goes, watch what will happen over 2 weeks. And anytime that she didn't dress bad every day. So the day she would come in, he'd be like, you look really nice today. And then just small things like that, and then slowly there was no more an appropriate dress. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. So being young and straight in college and stuff, watching someone do that was really impactful too.
That's right.
Those are things that just, in my head, I grew up with you did wrong. We'll talk about what was wrong because we showed you all the good. This is what you're supposed to do. Hold you to the standards. That's what's expected. And then I realize now with the world the way it is that more people respond to good, positive motivation.
Right. Give them treats. Yeah. Yep. Give them emotional and verbal treats. So, but I said treats, give them treats the other day, and you're like, oh, we just give and give and give things. We give. No, not things. Every day I'll get a thing, maybe.
Right.
But especially if they're a thing person. But knowing, but be able to give them, good encouragement, good feedback, positive feedback. You should give 10 positive feedbacks for every one negative. Yeah. Unless you just got a real problem child to a certain degree. So, fourth mistake that leaders make is poor communication. Poor communication, lack of. Communication is the first issue. Leaders holding their tongue and not communicating nearly enough, not knowing how to communicate, what to communicate, being hesitant to communicate. So there's a lack of communication, and then they hold it back, and also their communication becomes reactionary.
Okay.
And when it's reactionary, it's emotional in the moment. And generally, emotional communication does not turn out well. So biting your tongue, holding together the, gunny sack full of issues, and then waiting for one more potato to go in the gunny sack, right? Yeah. And then it, the sack blows up, right, over time, and it explodes, and then there's shrapnel everywhere. Or unstructured communication, not having a good structure to it, not knowing how to do it, kind of, going by the seat of their pants. So they kind of go off the cuff. They don't have clear intent and structure. And as a consequence, that communication lacks impact. All right. And back to the thing I said a minute ago, saying, hey, Chris, good job. You show up early. The impact of that is it makes a difference on the day, and it also encourages other people to show up on time. So, hey, good job. Keep showing up early. Also, not customized. People communicate, and they don't communicate in a customized way. They maybe communicate in their own communication style, right, or their own learning modality, and they don't course correct and adjust for the person that they're talking to. There's different behavioral styles. Tyler, you learned the behavioral styles in that 30X business growth program, to where there's 4 different behavioral styles, the D, the I, the S, the C, and each of those personalities require different types of communication. There's some types of personality that you talk to in bullet points. Boom, 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 boom. Right. Be bright, be brief, and be gone, right? There's certain people that when you start communication, it's got to be very interpersonal. It's got to be very much about them, because there's some personalities, who they are, that they're all about them. Right? It can't be very technical. It's got to be very light. It's got to have some energy to it, and it's got to be fun, right? It needs to have some tone to it. There are some folks that you've got to soften up for and take their time, right? There's some folks that just want the facts, that want the details, that want the technical specifications. Chris, I'm sure you run into this all the time in sales too, right? Yeah. Right? You got a boom, boom, boom for the driving, the Rolex buyer, the high-end Rolex buyer. I guess there's all types, but the
engineer,
the engineer, yes. Right? Well, you sell that high-end watch to different people, different ways. You got some people that want power and status, and it's like, hey, this is a big deal. You're going to look like a big deal. This is going to be the best there is. You're going to have the most expensive watch in the room, and everybody's going to think you're the man. Yeah. Everybody's going to think you're, the power boss, in charge woman in the room, right? And that appeals to that. And then you got the folks that man, people are going to think you're the greatest. It's going to be fun. You're going to make all kinds of friends. People are going to see you. They're going to hang out with you, right? And then you've got the more stable folks that, and steady, they're like, hey, this thing is going to last forever. You're going to pass this down. It's going to be a legacy for generations to come. Your kids and your grandkids and your great-grandkids are going to treasure this and think of you. And there are some folks who don't care about that. They want the engineer types that want the technical specifications and how it works. And you better know and be prepared. And by the way, if you give the technical specifications to the fun life of the party person, they will fall over dead. You'll just bore them to death, and they'll be all over the place, and they'll leave because that's where your product pushing with specifications and details, and you're not reading their style. Well, same thing is when it comes to leading them as well. If you don't modify it to a certain degree. And then you also have people that have different learning styles. You have the visuals that you have to show things to. Yeah. You have the auditories that you have to tell things to. And you have the kinesthetics that have to feel and touch. Mm-hmm. And often we give our own style to other folks when they have their own style. So being able to read that and adjust to it so that you're customizing your communication, to meet the individual is surely a huge thing. All right. So we got through number 4. Now we're at number 5. Not developing their team is the number 5 mistake that leaders make. So if you want your organization to grow, you either have to grow your people so that they grow with your organization.
Yeah.
Or you have to go hire new people that are grown. Mm-hmm. One of 2 choices. The problem is when you hire new people that come into your organization, they become, it's different. They don't have the institutional history, and they didn't grow up in the organization. They don't have the core values ingrained. They generally don't mesh well. It's like putting a new organ to the body, right? And if that doesn't, the lungs are like, hey, who's this new heart? And the body can reject it at some point, right? Well, your organization it's a living organization, and it can reject the new thing that it does exist in the organization. So there can be, and by the way, those new people are generally expensive. Mm-hmm. Yes, to bring them in. So
you have to steal them from someone else. So that has to be enticing.
That's right. So it can be a little bit of an issue. People often want to get promoted. They want to be part of a growing organization so they can grow with it. But often they're led by a very ambitious, committed, hard driving leader that is into growth, and they grow this organization, and the people have the desire to grow, but putting in the work is a totally different deal. And so them putting in the work. So it doesn't happen just organically. It doesn't magically happen by just hanging around with the leader. You've got to be very intentional. It doesn't just come with a quarterly review or an annual review. Most organizations at best do annual reviews, right, and some do quarterly reviews. But that's not enough to be able to grow. What it really requires to grow someone in an organization is very intentional, structured, week in, week out development. So you've got to have a plan to develop. You got to work your way through that. So, by the way, we teach people how to grow people in these master classes, but the big mistake is they don't do that. So, it's really important to grow and develop your team and continue to educate them and develop them to be able to handle the next levels that the organization, because as organizations grow, things get harder, things get more complex. You've got to continue to grow and learn if you're going to grow an organization. Number 6 mistake that leaders make is not seeking input. They don't look for input. All right, so here's the dynamic. You succeed and do well in an organization, right? And you get promoted. Yeah. And you start to read your own headlines. Everybody thinks you're doing well. Your organization succeeds. You start to take market share from other folks. Your customers tell you you're great. Your mom tells you you're great. Social media tells you you're great. Your reviews say you're great. And that develops this often false sense of, actually, it just kind of feeds the ego.
Okay.
Right? And ego is the pride begets the fall.
Yeah.
Right? So as your ego gets fed and you start to rise up in the organization, you start to have more responsibility, more things to do, things get more complicated, you start to make some more money, you start to have more fun, you start to, all kinds of wild things can happen, right? And then you lose the connection to the front lines of what's happening, what the real world is, right? Also, you lack a sense of self-awareness in some cases on how your behavior interacts with people, how it impacts people. There's often things I do as a leader, as the person that I'm now. All of a sudden, the spotlight's on me, the pressure's on me. I'm in a new role as well as a leader. I'm in a new spot, especially the business is growing. I'm in a new spot that I've never been in before. And maybe the promotion title hasn't changed, but I could be going from selling as an organization, I don't know, $1 million in sales and go to $2 million in sales. Well, I may go from 5 employees to 10 employees. When you go to 5 employees to 10 employees, the complications interpersonally don't double.
No. Yeah, it's exponential.
It's exponential, right? You got exponential issues. So pressures become exponential. You have more customers, you double your customers. It's not double the problems. It's exponentially more problems. So because you're generally in a space that you haven't been trained and developed for. So you start to react in more emotional ways. And here's a thing early in my career, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, Chris, but when I got my first management position, after a few years and the pressure was really on, I was known, some of my workers joked to my wife and said, yeah, we saw the Reggie face this morning. And I overheard, and I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, she knows what I'm talking about, the Reggie face. And she's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm like, what are you talking about, the Reggie face? It's that look on your face that you have when you look at somebody, and that face says, you are such a moron. And I don't hide that very well. Have you ever seen that face, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, you see it. Okay. It's involuntary.
Yeah.
I don't know that I do it.
Oh, I do it.
All
the time.
You've got it. So I've got that look that's like, you're an idiot. And I can't, it's involuntary. I just can't hide it. My authenticity just oozes out of me. And so that's a very deflating expression.
Yeah.
Really kind of, kicks people in the guts. So it's not great, but it shows. So getting that kind of input, if I'm not careful, I'm going to, make emotional bank account withdrawals with folks by not knowing. So if I don't seek feedback, I don't know I'm doing that.
Right.
And when I don't know I'm doing that. So, doing frequent, I've had a 360 done. You ever done a 360, had one done on yourself or done that on a boss?
No.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you ever done a 360?
I've heard of it, but I've never actually done it.
360s are when like a person organization is surveyed and, their boss surveys them, their, colleagues do it, their subordinates give feedback on, and they can be very complex and they can be very simple. We actually, for organizations, we do very simple ones.
That makes sense.
But we do also have access to very complex ones that you would find in a heavy duty corporate environment. Right. And so it's shocking. And also you'll do one on yourself. So it's funny, your perception, their perception. And then it's with large organizations, you can benchmark yourself against other people in your position, and you see how you rank against everybody else. So it's amazing the disconnect between how you think you are versus how others see you.
Yeah.
Shocking the difference. And that's good for course correction behavior. And when you have a trend of everybody going, no, he's got this bad habit, and one person can tell it to you, and you're like, yeah. But when 5 people tell you, that usually is a pattern.
We did something it was similar to that, but it was more accidental. It was because we all did disc assessments. And then we sat down and we all talked about how we scored in our disc and how we saw ourselves and how I didn't see that in you, but I get where you're coming from now for this aspect. So it was very similar to what a 360 was, which is what our coach said. It was like, hey, you actually did something similar to a 360. That's how I heard of it. Yeah. But we didn't actually do one, but it was because of the disc assessment.
Yeah, real powerful. We've actually done them. The most fun we've ever done is done them live.
Oh, wow.
We pick one person a week.
Oh, that's neat.
And they have to give live feedback. Now, it's part of an engagement program where trust is built, and you have to frame it up right. Yeah. And the boss goes first. Yeah. And the boss takes all the heat to start with. And so they take it well, and they get their feedback, and they decide, they come back and say, hey, I've heard y'all, and this is what I'm going to work on. And they work on it to get better at it. So if the boss leads it off, it usually goes well, and people are comfortable with giving both positive and negative feedback all the way through. Right. And it's also, we also incorporate it into reviews.
Okay.
And make it part of the review process. So, talk about that ego thing. Some people think that they own success organizationally or personally, that they own it. I've succeeded once. I don't have to give feedback. I got promoted. I've improved. People are doing business with us more often, and we're taking market share from competitors because we're better. Look at our reviews. My mama tells me they're the greatest thing in the world, right? You can't own that success. You can only rent it. Yeah. And the rent's due every day. So you've got to have visibility on what your impacts are and where you're doing well and where you're not. So if you don't have feedback, you're going to be in trouble. Page 2 of the menu board, which isn't full, by the way. So you got to seek input from your customers, your team, other high performers, and your higher mind. I'm going to get a little woo-woo-y here. Your higher mind. Your mind's a pretty powerful thing that you don't tap into. Now, I was voted the guy probably 5-10 years ago. I was voted the guy most likely not to subscribe to any of these woo-woo-y type tactics like meditation and your higher mind. Mm-hmm. And I always saw meditation as something somewhat spiritual. Mm-hmm. And I realized how I think mechanical it is and how logical it is. Right. Once it was framed up the right way, being able to take the time, just a real quick version of this is, quite often we live in fight or flight mode. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's not when we do our good think work. That's when we do our good reflection work. We can't do creative work in flight or fight mode. It's only about survival. Yeah. So when we get down to that proper state to where we're out of flight or flight mode, and this often happens when you're relaxed, when you're de-stressed, when your cortisol levels are lowered and released. It happens a lot in massage. I've had big problems going into a massage, more for body mechanics. Right. But then I was like, I have a solution to the problem. That's because I got out of flight or flight mode. Well, you can get into that really quickly with meditations, and getting your brain waves on the right level to where you can clear your mind and think. So I've been introduced to walking meditations and thinking. And I go through a meditation every day that really is based on me visualizing and imagining my top 3 goals that I'm working to accomplish. And that gets my mind in the right space. And it helps me make different choices throughout the day. Right. Yeah. So it is not, and while some religions or those kind of things that I'm really not in alignment with from a belief or value perspective, they do use meditations for their own use. And that's how it's labeled. You can use meditation to be able to wire your mind and be able to tap into your higher mind, because your mind is a tool and we use so little of it. Right. Yeah. Because we're either fight or flighting it or feeding it junk food. And when I say mental junk food, right? Too much TV or too much,
scrolling on TikTok
stuff, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the newest thing. It's going through reels and going through social media, and instead of, and by the way, is that all good stuff for you? Is that good, or does that put you in more fight or flight mode? Exactly. And don't go to the comments. Don't go to the comments. Right. So making sure that you take the time and to tap into your higher mind. I have done and accomplished some really powerful things in the last couple of years once I've learned how to tap into my higher mind as opposed to my quality mind versus my child mind, which is what was issued to me by the environment I was raised in. And being aware of that. And so when I talk about just getting input, sometimes that input's from others, and that's important. Sometimes that input is for the person that understands you or that should understand you better than anybody else, and that's you. Yeah. So that's a great place to get input. That's deep. Goes a lot deeper than that, but just a taste. Lack of accountability is the 7th mistake that leaders make. Okay. It's a huge miss that kills momentum and growth in organizations, accountability. If you don't do what you're supposed to do in the organization and others see that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, so they don't think they have to do what they're supposed to do in the organization, then it creates drag on the organization and it slows the speed for growth. Mm-hmm. So it can make a big difference. So leaders really struggle also. I've seen it time and time again. I work with a lot of owners over the years, and they tell me, and a lot of managers in these master classes, and they go, what do I do if my people don't do what they're supposed to do? We just write them up? Well, let me tell you a little something. It's been my experience, write-ups don't make much of a difference in organizational behavior. Right? Just, it doesn't move the needle. Yeah. It's nice to pad the file, if you're getting ready to, and if you want to avoid firing them without consequence. Right. But it doesn't move but your employees know you're not going to fire them over. They learn what they can do and not do to get fired. And they know that it has to escalate to a certain level before they get fired. Right. So they go, what can I do to hold them accountable? They just won't do it. They just make excuses. They don't have time. and they don't, I can't get them to, so they struggle with holding their teams accountable. Well, here's the key. First of all, you've got to have self-accountability. Okay. It starts with a leader. And here's the issue that the lack of congruency with self-accountability leads to team accountability. Manager, owner, they get promoted. Guess what? Do they have more work or less work than get promoted?
More.
They get more work, right? Yep. They got more to do, higher level things they don't know how to do, things more complex, things take more time. They got more responsibility. They don't delegate real well. They just take on more because it's got to be done right. Mm-hmm. You got to do it yourself. Yes. So they do all their old job. They do all their new job. They do way too much, and they don't have time. Now, they have a high-level excuse because they're important, but they say when they make a commitment, don't follow through to a customer or to a team member, they go, well, I didn't have time, right? Well, team members are kind of like kids. You can tell them all you want, mm-hmm. but they're going to watch what you do, and they're going to emulate and model what they do. You want to found with when organizations have a leader or manager that often doesn't have time, guess what becomes the acceptable excuse in the organization when they don't do their work?
They didn't have time.
I didn't have time. I didn't have time.
Ed Milet always says behaviors are caught, not taught.
That's right. Mm. That's right. That's right.
That's a good one.
That's right. So you often, back up your miss as a leader with blame or excuses. And that problem is that team is watching. So being able to hold your team accountable for execution and making it a core value point that we do what we say we're going to do when we do it, and that the leader models it is critical to moving an organization. And the problem is if you miss something this week and they miss something this week, it takes 2 or 3 times to get to an objective. Mm-hmm. It creates length in time that it takes to be able to achieve objectives in the organization if we don't do what we say we're going to do, or if we don't do what we say we're going to do and we make somebody upset or mad, like a customer per se. Right. Then the customer gets mad, and now we have to deal with the emotions of the customer. That takes time. That expends emotional energy. So that becomes all this negative cycle that creates drag on the organization, that if we just said we did what we said we're going to do when we said we'll do it, then everything would roll faster. So lack of accountability, big mistake. Next mistake, lack of delegation.
Yes.
Right? So many leaders are doing way too much. They get burned out. They lose energy. And that is the energy that fuels their passion and focus, which is real critical. They got that's what leaders do. They have passion, they have focus. But if you're burned out, you can't fuel that. Again, back to that. When done right, got to do it yourself. Yep. So delegation is one of the most important skills that a leader has. But I got a question for you guys. You guys are leaders in your organization. Yeah. Have you ever been formally trained on how to delegate?
That's probably the lowest thing when it comes to trainings is delegation.
Yeah. They just tell you to delegate.
Right.
Delegate. You are a delegator now.
Just give
delegate.
more out. Yeah.
Yeah. Just delegate. Yeah. Just push work down.
Yeah.
Right. Delegation's a skill. And as with most of the other training that managers need, it's not a skill that's taught. Mm-hmm. So then you're doing way too much. You're burned out, and you don't have that that energy to have the passion or the time to have the passion and focus.
That's the biggest one for me too, is because there's something that I don't want to do. I'm like, I don't want to give it to this person, and I always just take it on myself again too.
Right, and you're not developing that person.
Right,
you're hurting them. You're stunting their growth
because they didn't learn whatever needs to be done. So then they can't level up themselves,
right. And they can't do it your way.
Yeah,
and they can't fall and make mistakes like you did. By the way, you screwed it up the first time you did it too. Right.
Exactly.
And so being able to properly train, develop, and delegate to folks makes a difference. Lack of self-care is the number 9 mistake that most leaders make. Being a leader requires a large amount of emotional and physical energy.
Yes.
Takes a lot.
Yep.
Right. So poor diet, lack of exercise, poisons and toxins, excessive alcohol, the poor body chemistry, by the way, perpetuated by all those other things, right? Poor sleep habits. I love that sleep is becoming, so much more of a focus in well care now, because I don't know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, man. It was, we'll sleep when we're dead.
Exactly.
Right? We'll go. Well, you don't sleep well, you're going to have less quality of life and you're going to die sooner. So, good quality sleep can void off so much of things that, limit quality and quantity of life. Elevated cortisol due to stress, right? All these things, that kind of build up over time can have that negative. And by the way, what happens when you have all these things? If you have all this stress and you have these things, and then you start to eat comfort food, right? Because I deserve this comfort food. And I love me some comfort food now. Chris knows.
Yes.
My love language is food, and my preferred food is fried and greasy and cheesy and creamy and all the good things in life are food. So I've had to do some course correction pretty heavily recently. Or you drink excessively. Right? Because you got to relax, got to chill out, got to have a good time, you don't sleep as much, right? And so all this becomes this negative spiral, and then you do things that treat the symptoms, not the root cause of the issue. And then let's throw some pharmaceuticals on there that'll have some side effects.
That'll make everything
worse. And you start to kind of wind down into this spiral. And so having the, body, mind, and emotions at peak performance by making sure that you do practice good self-care. All things in moderation every now and then, little more alcohol every now and then,
yes,
right? But you got to be generally characterized, a good good pleasure meal every now and then. But that can't be what you're characterized by,
right?
So, and it's amazing what the difference is. You start to get into those, positive cycles, and what a dramatic impact it does make. So, you got to make sure that you have proper self-care. Number 10, only got 11, so we got 2 more left. Lack of passion.
Okay,
right. That's the number 10 mistake that leaders make. Leaders' number one job. It's their one job. Number one job. Got a lot of jobs, but their number one job is to generate passion for the vision, the mission, the objectives of the organization. And if you're making many of these mistakes that are listed above, the 9 mistakes that we've listed above, it's easy to lose passion for what it takes to lead the organization. If you don't have, let's take the self-care, if you don't have that energy and that it takes to be able to, have the emotion wherewithal, the physical, strength and all those kind of things to do that, it's hard to have that passion.
Yeah.
So you'll lose it. And you have that passion when you first started. When a leader takes over, man, they have it. Right. But once that leader's been there for a while, and they're tired, they're wore out, they're ran ragged, and they lack that passion. And they are not nearly as effective as they were when they first took over that position because the position wore them out. Lastly, the number 11 mistake that leaders make is a lack of focus. Right? That's the number 2 job of a leader. Number 1 job is passion. Number 2 is focus, keeping the team focused on the mission, the vision, achieving objectives, right? So and the difference between passion and focus, you ever had that leader that's really passionate, that's full of sizzle, can give the rah-rah, can come in and get you pumped up, right? And do that killer pep talk, the coach that comes in and does that pregame speech.
Yes.
And how long does that last? Everybody goes, ah, and they hit the door and they're fired up, and it goes as soon as they hit the door.
Yeah.
Yep.
And man, once something happens, you're going to fall back to your systems and habits and processes, right? So what's a good, coach do, right? Time out. Let's get refocused. We're off track.
Yeah.
Right.
Just line it up.
Right. What's happened in the workplace? You have that good motivational meeting. You have that pep talk, and meeting breaks. And the mistake that a lot of leaders make is they go, well, I told them. I told them what to do. Yeah. And they'll blame the team, as opposed to looking internally and holding themselves really accountable and responsible and going, it's not just my job to tell them what to do, but also when they're off track, get them refocused. All right, guys, time out. Come back up. All right, got off track, right? Let's remember vision. Here's our mission, right? Hey, that was that our culture point, or was that not our culture point? Hey, what would have been the better thing to do? Right? Hey, good. That's great. Keep the team refocused, right? Could be refocused in the moment, right? if it's appropriate, right? Could be, hey, let's wait till save it for the meeting. Let's save it. A lot of times in the moment, it's not the best time. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But no matter what it takes, getting the team back, hey, we're off focus. We've lost track. Well, look, we got our numbers here. Something's off. What's happening? What's going on? Heck, I don't know. I'm not on the front lines. You got to tell me what's different. What's going on? What happened this week? Where could you have been better? Where do we need to improve? What do we need to change? What do you need to do different? What do I need to do different? But getting the team back refocused is a really, really, it's the number 2 job. Outside of getting people fired up and willing to do the job, also you got to get them willing to, even if they want to do it, to refocus them if they're off track. So those are the 11 mistakes that leaders make. They make more. If you want to know what the other 9 are, actually there's more than 9 because what's in the video is a little different than what's in here. There's only 8 that are in the video that are on my list. And I added some on my list that weren't on the top 20 list based on my own experiences. So anyway, but go to the website. Again, just Google Coach Reggie Wilmington. You'll come to the Action Coach site. And you'll see see a page on leadership. You'll get the top 20. There's a downloadable white paper. There's all kinds of cool things in there. If you want to sample one of our master classes and learn how to overcome some of these leadership mistakes, we'd be glad to invite you in. First class is on us. Yeah. Help you see the goods. And same thing applies to our sales and management and our business growth classes and things that we do here. So, love to, anybody that's hearing this within earshot that is in the local Wilmington area that wants to be part of our, live and local classes. That's also something that's a little different than us about other training organizations is we're live and local. Right. And we've got a lot of things that we do with real people and produce real results here in our community. So that's it. So anyway, that's what I got.
So question.
I got them. Yeah.
Nothing too crazy. What was the catalyst that made you want to transition from just helping the owners of the businesses to actually bringing it down to the level underneath, to the leaders and the salespeople?
Yeah. A couple of different things. Yeah. Making the impact that I want to make as I've hit my 50s, I've made the decision to make a little bit broader impact than just on the couple of dozen businesses that I work with on a yearly basis. Okay. I've had a, pretty boutique and specialized firm, been a very, very well-kept secret for a lot of business owners here in the community, and we've helped them grow dramatically. We've taken businesses that were struggling and not making money at $1 million a year in revenue, didn't know the mechanics of growing and running a profitable business. And we helped them get wildly profitable, help them grow. I got one business I work with that went from $1 million a year and not making money to $4 million a year and producing a 20% net. Wow. Okay, do the math on that. 20% net, that's about $800,000 in net profit. That's life-changing. I think that business did $7 million last year. That 1 to 4 happened in about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. That's making zero money
to making
$250,000 a year in profit. Right. That happened in a 3-year period. That's cool. To be able to do some stuff like that. How many people did he tell about that? Not many. Yeah. It was a well-kept secret, right? Yeah. So and I enjoyed that work, still do some of that work, but that has a limited impact. And I as the guru and the expert, am the person that really has to be the cook in the kitchen there. These training and master classes, the skill set to be able to facilitate and run these master classes, it's not the same skill set as what it takes to do what I just described. Right. Little simpler. I can have 12 to 15 businesses in a class. I can run 3 to 4 classes at one time. My impact is much larger. Yeah. And by the way, I don't have to be the person that runs the class.
True. Yeah.
Right. The skill set to do that is, to facilitate. And there are, that's something that's a little simpler for associate coaches and associate team members to be able to run and facilitate. So that's really the shift is if I'm going to make this impact and create this legacy that I want to create over the, my remaining working years. Clock's ticking. Yeah. And so making that shift into being able to help more people and to make more of an impact and be able to share. We've just got this incredible stable of resources that we have that I've really just kept for a chosen few.
Yeah.
And so to be able to open that up for more, to be able to help more people, create more abundance, that's really the reason for the shift. And it not being like, as far as what's my personal interest in that. So I can help more people. Mm-hmm. And that's, I want to serve more. And so as you've known me for a long time, Chris, service is my love language, doing things for people. Yeah. That's how I often love, is by doing things. I may not say a word, but I'll love through doing things. So I like doing things for people. Also, just from a business perspective, it has the ability to have a bit more scalability for me and more leverage. So there's that aspect as well, allows us to be able to help more. So that's the big reason for the shift.
Nice. Just curious.
Yeah.
Tyler?
So if you were to tell a business owner who's finally started to scale, mm-hmm. one of the main reasons why they should send a leader to your course, what would be your real short elevator pitch for that?
If you want to earn more, you got to learn more.
I like it.
You want to learn more, you got to earn more, right? You just can't have the formula for success. Here's the quick version. Formulas for success is dream times goal. Got to have dreams.
Yeah. Right.
Got to have goals. Why do you need dreams and not just goals? Because when goals get hard, you need the dream to fall back on.
Right.
When it gets tough.
Yeah.
Right? The why. You got to have your why to fall back on. So you got to have a goal. Then you got to learn. If you've got a goal, then you got to learn how to do the goal. One of the reasons you haven't achieved the goal is you probably haven't learned how to do it. Mm-hmm. Right? You achieve your goals based on what you've learned how to do, and you hit ceilings based on your lack of learning.
Right.
Yeah. Then you got to have a plan. So if you don't have, and by the way, if you don't learn, what's the quality of your plan going to be? It's going to be a low quality likelihood of achieving that goal without proper learning. It's really, really low. You might get lucky, but it's really, really low. So you got to learn to make a good, effective plan. And then you have to act. By the way, what if you act without a plan or learning? Your actions are generally really low quality.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if you were so dream, goal, learn, plan, act equals success. That's the formula for success. If you want yourself and your team members acting in a way that's much higher quality, that's much more productive, that produces higher quality results, then taking the time to learn, implement, so that they can make better quality plans, so they can perform higher quality actions, so they can achieve more of their own organizational goals and help you as the owner achieve their dreams, help them achieve their dreams, then got to learn. Yeah. So we've got we've got the highest quality bang for the buck. There is just not a higher quality environment to be able to get world-class training, development, support with implementation. And, to do that our 12-week master classes are $125 a session.
That's not bad at all.
It's $1,500, right? How much, what good quality business training is. You have to send like generally the travel and hotel is $1,500, exactly. Right? Yeah, to be able to get high quality training. We do it here. It's live and local. Training's $1,500 for a 12-week course, to where, we hold people accountable to implementation and achieving results. It prints money for people.
Yeah.
So if you want to print money in your organization and get your people better, then send them to the class.
I like it. Very good.
I love it. So you've already shouted out where people can find you.
That's right.
Do you use social media or? I mean, we commented about the big gap.
I'm feeling a little attacked from an age perspective. No. Yeah, I do use social media. Yeah. I traditionally haven't used it to the level I had before, even back to boutique practice.
Yeah.
Only can keep most of my business was by referral or me going out and speaking every now and then. Haven't really needed it, but that is about to be a big change. By the time you release this podcast, you will see something significantly different because I have a set of resources and also programs that have a broader appeal than just highly ambitious business owners that are committed to growth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That was my target market before, or has been for years. Business owners that are, highly ambitious and committed to growth. That's who made sense to work with me. Yeah. So we've opened that up to, there's those business owners and there's the rest of the business owners and then there's salespeople and there's managers, there's leaders. So we have a much bigger market that it makes more sense to do social media. And plus I have a set of resources that have been generated by me, by Brad Sugars and the team at Action Coach. That are really awesome, that lets us see the organization at our very best. And that really can provide a lot of value and that is really exciting. So you'll see a lot more presence on social media just for a handful of reasons. Yeah. And so that's getting deployed over the next month or two.
Cool. Okay.
And so so you'll see that. So Facebook, easiest way, is one way. Handle Business Coach. I assume you'll link all these handles in the thing. Exactly. But Biz Coach Reggie is my, business profile there. LinkedIn, good reach. And again, you go to the website, you'll find all the links there. But LinkedIn profile has some things, but also will continue to have more content there. And that's as far as I've gone for now. Yeah. But next is diving into Instagram and, being able to, again, I haven't really posted there much, but you'll see that change coming up soon. So, nice. And we'll start to do a lot more advertising and a lot more branding as most of our marketing has been really direct response. So a lot more to come in the future. So hasn't been in the past, but you'll see a whole lot more in the future.
That's awesome. Very good.
Cool. Yeah. So keep an eye out. I always love seeing the stuff you bring home. Every time you go, you're one of those people that you actually get the training and you come back and it actually permeates the group. Mm-hmm. Like it'll permeate the house. We'll be feeling that energy for longer than like a couple days. Right. Like it's something that we see implemented, which is great.
Yeah. And by the way, Chris doesn't live with me, bring home.
Oh, no.
He's got his house now. Yes. I have my house.
Yes.
If you want the rest of that backstory, the other podcasts, maybe link back to that and talk about the Chris and Reggie story on how we're connected and how we became family over the years. I'm not sure who adopted two. I'm not sure if Chris adopted us. We adopted Chris, but he is definitely family and still my wife's favorite.
Yes.
Although his wife, I don't know, man, Emily is giving Chris a run for his money in regards to who's the favorite.
That's the way to do it.
But that's when you brought on a good wife or significant other when they can compete with you for that.
That's right. That's right. She's strategic, man. She's smart. She's shifty, man. She knows how to work it.
She does.
Yes, she does.
Shout out to Emily.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right.
I actually really like this tequila. It is one of those.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I always had to shout out the whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
Tequila. I'm like, I was sipping on it. I'm like, this is one of those that I pour it and I just sit there for like 2 hours, just slowly sipping just because it's just so smooth. Mm-hmm. And it's not the thing you get at the bar and like, hey, let's shoot it.
No.
You just miss all the flavors.
Yeah, not shooting tequila, no lemon or salt, no lime and salt.
You could do some ice in it.
Yeah, you can do some, but I don't know, man. I don't think you want to water down.
Say not this.
Yeah.
You don't want to water down that. Maybe just a little dot of water.
Okay.
Will actually bring some flavors out, but just a little dot of water because you don't want to miss the goodness. And I do always love, one thing I do love about higher end tequilas is they always have, and this one is it's a little bit smaller bottle, so it's not the full dramatic boxes, but the Hispanic culture comes with a little more drama.
Yes.
A little more emotion. Just take a look at the Mexican novellas, right? Yeah. The soap operas, right? A lot of drama, a lot of flair, a lot of flash. Well, that's their culture.
Yeah.
Right. And the tequila bottles,
same way.
They have their house. So, they have presentation. So I have a lot of, as I've collected some finer tequilas over the years, they have, these fancy boxes and display boxes that come in. So it's really cool to see the flair they have as opposed to, something that just, gets wrapped up in a brown paper bag.
Right. Exactly.
So anyway.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it and giving some of your knowledge to the listeners and everything. So
Thanks for
I appreciate
having me
it.
on, and thanks for giving me 2 episodes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anytime. We're more than happy to do that.
I love it. Well, guys, we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.